Hello, beautiful people. So I was working on this track in the Arranger, and I noticed on the Octatrack there's, I wouldn't call it an issue, but there's definitely a perception issue as to how this is supposed to work when it comes to the Arranger. And it's a weird thing that's going on with muting. And I figured out what it is. So I'm going to walk you through the issue and then I'll walk you through what the solution was. But I can't be the only one having this. I searched all over Facebook, all over the forums, everywhere. YouTube couldn't find anyone posting a solution to this. So hopefully this helps somebody and doesn't waste gobs of time like it did for me. So I've got this track and I've got this song, and it's using most of the 8 tracks of the Octatrack, right? So I've got the digitact coming into track 1. I've got the digitone coming in through track 5, analog 4, track 6. I'm not using the syntax right now in track 7, so we can kind of safely ignore that for now. But I'll play the track and then show you what all the different parts are. So I've got a couple of samples coming in on tracks 2, 3, and 4. All right, and then I've got the drums coming in on the digitact on track 1. By the way, if you can look at one of my other videos on how to set all this up using the MIDI routing and whatnot. I've got some piano coming in on the digitone on track 5. I'll unmute that. And then I've got a bass line coming in on the analog 4 on track 6. I'll unmute that. All right, so that's it. And there's just 5 or 6 different parts to this. 3 of them are samples. The rest are all through machines coming in from other equipment. All right, so let's stop that. I want to look at the Arranger real quick. And I've set it up an arrangement, and let's just go ahead and edit that. No, I don't want to save it. All right, so it's just pattern 2, okay? And pattern 2 is 4 pages, so 16 steps times 4, 64 steps, right? So I want to play 0 through 64. These are all default settings in the Arranger, right? So I've got it set up to play 1 time through, right? And then I've got some mutes going on, which is one of my favorite features. So click on mute and click yes, or move the cursor over to mute and hit yes. And you can see I've muted track 1, which is the digitac, and then 5, 6, and 7, which are the digitone, analog 4, and the syntac that I'm not using. So that, in theory, should just play the samples, right? It's not going to bring in any of the other instruments. And then if I go down to the next track, I'm going to know so you can see where I am. There's no mutes on this one. So if I hit yes, you'll see everything is lit up across the board, right? So there are no mutes going on. It should be playing all instruments at 1, including the channel that I've got nothing coming in on. All right, then if you look at, let's go no, and then move down to the next, and you can see the 3rd iteration I've got coming through. I do have mutes on, so let's look at those. So now I'm pulling out the drums and the 3 other machines, the digitone, the analog 4, and the syntac again. So I'm playing just the samples, then all the instruments, and then just the samples again, right? In theory, that should work. Let's go ahead and play that. All right, so play it from the start. So you just hear the samples. Now you should hear everything. And you do. So the mutes worked great. Now this next pattern coming up, same thing, but minus all the instruments again. Instruments are still there. What's going on? Why is the digitac still playing? Why is the bass line and the piano still playing on the other instruments? It makes 0 sense to me, right? So I'm like, it's got to be broken. It's got to be a bug. There hasn't been a new patch for the Octatrack released for probably like a year or 2. So there's, and there's nothing on the forums for this. And then I realized that it's not necessarily the Octatrack that's at fault here. It's actually me, and let me show you what's going on here. So if I get rid of the Arranger, all right, you can see, let's go to the digitact. You can see if I go to the amplitude settings page, all right, I've got the hold and the release on the amp set to infinity, which means that it's just going to play on forever and ever. So for anyone that doesn't know, I'll put a diagram on the screen, but the amplitude controls when you trigger a step, it controls how long it takes to go from 0 volume to max, and then how long it holds, and then when you're done with that step, which in this case is just 1, how long it takes to release it and go back down to 0 volume, right? So in this case, it's holding it infinitely and it's never releasing it, all right? So if you've done this kind of layout before, you know that in order to trigger an external through machine to play, you have to put a trigger on step 1. And I've got 4 pages here, so 64 steps. All right, so I need to tell the amplitude envelope when to shut down, right? So first thing I need to do is I need to change the hold to 64 steps. So let's do that. And then once it's done holding this one trigger for 64 steps, how long do I want it to kind of fade away? Well, in this case, immediately. So I'm going to make that 0. All right. So I have to do that for all of my through machines. So let's go 64 and then 0. And then analog 4, 64, 0. And then even though I'm not using the syntax, I'll still do it. 64, 0. All right, and then we're done. So now let's go back to my arrangement. All right, and now let's play and let's see if that second group of mutes work. Just the samples. Now it should pull in the instruments, and it was doing this before, so that's no problem. Okay, so I've got my piano, I've got my bass, and I've got my drums. When this 64 steps is done, it should go back to just the samples. There you go. So that was the issue. It's the amplitude envelope. So just FYI, if you were having problems with that before, make sure you keep the hold to however long your pattern is, and then make sure you get rid of that release so that it immediately goes away. Hope this helps. Check out more videos on my channel and keep making music. Ciao.